All right, all right, all right, all right. Okay, so testing things out here. Just making sure it's going through okay. Just testing things out. Give me a second. If you hear the awesomeness coming through, let me know. Ah, there it goes. Okay, cool. It just took a second. All right, sweet. There we go. Okay, cool. All right, so we are getting close to time here, and then we can start momentarily when everybody shows up. So, we'll just kind of chill out for here. You can see the sun shining brightly on my face because I can't really do anything about that. Because Windows, anyway. I might need to invest in some better curtains. Can everyone hear me okay? Testing, 1, 2, testing. Everything okay on the interbuts? Do you need me to turn myself up? I think I'm going to turn myself up a little bit. Oh, bumping everything. Apologies. Hope everybody can hear me okay now. Testing things out. And then we'll go back to the panel slides. Going once. Okay, so we are at the top of the hour. Just making sure everything's going through okay. If you can hear me all right, please let me know, and then we can get started. Bit quiet. Okay, cool. Yeah, I can turn that up. Better or worse? Okay. Talking in a box. I'll point this down towards the mouth so that works a little better there. Cool. Better or worse? If I'm clipping, let me know, because I'm not referencing myself right now. So, hello. Oh, hey, I see some old friends of the channel who haven't been on. I haven't streamed in a minute just because various reasons I've been busy. But yeah, good to see you again, Voodoo and Brandon. Nice to see both of y'all. And then we'll see if the rest of the folks from First Squared will be joining us momentarily. There's already quite a few people watching. Okay, so no difference. All right. All right, cool. Different mic angle helped. Okay, cool. Sweet, sounds good. All right, so there are a fair few people in the stream right now, so we might as well get started. All right, so hey everyone, welcome to Home Vocal Recording on a Budget. I am Shal or Shally, depending on who you talk to, and I hope y'all are enjoying your First Squared Online 2021 experience. First Squared is easily my favorite convention of all time. It is an absolute delight, and I apologize for playing favorites, but let's be real, it's a fantastic con, and they've really managed to bring it together. Despite the fact that we are all currently on the internet right now, but it's all good. I can still do my usual spiel and help out people with home vocal recording, so that'll be fun. Bear in mind that this is a charity event, so if you want to donate to help out Hawes, they are an amazing animal shelter in Wisconsin near where First Squared is usually held. So donate to that cause. They are a fantastic shelter. Every little bit helps. The donation link is down in the description below. If you're not super familiar with First Squared and you're just kind of one of my regular viewers, there's also a link down below to the convention website where you can kind of see what they all have going on. They've got a lot of fun programming happening. So yeah, let's get this party started. So home vocal recording. It's kind of like, I guess I'll just talk a little bit about, for people who are not familiar with my content. I am a musician and producer here on YouTube. I primarily produce vocal recording and vocal special effects tutorials. So I kind of know my way around a studio, specifically a home studio. So my goal is to sort of impart some of that knowledge to you so that you can get an idea of how to get started if you're interested in doing home vocal recording for whatever purposes you may have. So let's get into that. So I'll talk a bit about things that I won't be covering for this. So for starters, I won't be talking about vocal performance because I'm kind of assuming that you've got your vocal performance part on lockdown. I'm assuming you've got that figured out, and that you don't need to, like, there are many different types of vocal performance out there, and I'm not going to, like, pretend that I know all of them, and there would just be way too much information to cover. I just want to cover the recording aspect. The other thing I won't be talking about is live sound, which doesn't matter a whole lot because we are in quarantine. Yay. But let's just say all of these tips and suggestions will be for basically the bedroom vocalist. So you've come to the right place. All right, so let's talk about equipment. Now, there's a lot of different approaches to home vocal recording from like a price standpoint. You could potentially spend a lot of money on a home recording or very little. And I know that not everybody wants to drop an arm and a leg on this. And some people are just kind of figuring things out for the first time. So you may not want to spend a whole lot of money. So with that in mind, I'll be looking at this from sort of 3 different price points. Sort of the bare bones, which is like the bottom level, like the barest minimum that you need to be able to record vocals into a digital medium. And then there's like the general, like, I'd say good mic with free stuff where it's like this will get you pretty decent audio quality and doesn't cost a ton of money. And then if you want to upgrade your setup beyond that, I'll talk about that as well. But yeah, and just as I'm going through this, feel free to ask questions in the chat. I will be watching. I have both the Foursquare Discord and the live stream YouTube chat pulled up on my computer over here, so I'll be able to keep an eye on things as we're going through. I sort of have pause points throughout this, and I'll be able to answer questions then. And yes, this will be recorded, so if people want to watch this later, I will put it up on my channel. We'll talk more about that later. So bare bones, like this is just the cheapest you can go in order to get sound into a digital medium for like the barest minimum. And that's because we're doing this on a smartphone. So smartphone home recording is very, very simple. You basically just take some sort of a wired lavalier microphone and plug it into your phone. Because you could theoretically use the audio on your phone itself, like use the microphone that's built into your phone if you don't want to spend any money, unless you need to buy a phone. At any rate, this will get you at least a little bit better quality. They can be pretty cheap, but they vary in quality depending on how much you want to spend. The one that I have is the PowerDewise one mentioned here. It is decidedly mediocre, but it's also $22 and comes with like extension cables and a bag and whatever. It's not that bad. Then there's a couple other ones mentioned for various different price points. They're like I said, you're really not breaking the bank here. But But yeah, one thing I do want to draw your attention to is look specifically at the image of this microphone at the plug. Notice that it has 3 black stripes. This is what's known as a TRRS audio jack. These are the ones that are specifically designed for working with smartphones. If you have one that has 2 stripes, it will not work with your phone's headphone jack. And I know some phones don't have headphone jacks anymore. This will work equally fine with an adapter. But yeah, just make sure that the one that you get has those 3 black stripes. Another thing you want is something to record into. So you'll be on your phone. You probably want some kind of an audio recorder app. The one that I have on my Android phone is called Smart Recorder. Voice Recorder Pro is available on iOS. And then if you want a more robust music making tool that gives you a lot more choices and a lot more like actual sound design options, you could use FL Studio Mobile. It's only $20, and you have a full-fledged music making software on your phone. It's really nice. And then what else? You obviously need headphones. Because you're going to be using the headphone jack for recording, you're not going to be able to listen to what you're doing while you're doing it. So you'll basically have to record and then listen back. But this is the bare bones cheap package. So because it's going so inexpensive, you're really going to be compromising on convenience. But really, you don't need to spend any sort of special money on headphones. Just use ones that you already have. Don't worry about it. Same thing is true for the phone itself. This picture here is, I purposely chose a really old Samsung model to demonstrate that you really don't need sophisticated hardware in order to make this work. You can do everything you need with a very, very simple phone. So moving on to the slightly more expensive one, the majority of what you're going to be spending your money on is a microphone. Hydration is important. The microphone is the bulk of the purchase here. Here are some various microphone options. These are all USB microphones, so they should be compatible with pretty much any laptop or desktop computer. This setup does assume that you're going to be using a computer to do this. I used the Samson C01U for many years. That one was discontinued. Here are some other cheaper ones. The Blue Snowball Ice is very, very popular. There's another one from Mackie that is mentioned here. I would discourage you from spending less than $50 on a USB microphone, because below $50, the audio quality really starts to suffer. Really not worth your money. Yeah, so got stuff like, so that's the microphone of this setup. Again, headphones. It's good to have headphones. The computer. Again, this is like a super budget HP laptop to demonstrate that you really don't need anything fancy in order to record audio. Like, you don't need a top-of-the-line laptop to make this work, or a top-of-the-line desktop. Just use what you have. And then the software. This is the important one that a lot of people don't necessarily know about. So GarageBand is a popular choice if you are a Mac user. Just use it. It's easy. It sounds great. It's free. Pro Tools First is another good choice for other folks. I mentioned here that Audacity is not recommended because Audacity is a audio editor. It is, let's just say, really hard to work with, because if you ever have to make changes to the things that you record in there, it is very obnoxious to have to change them, especially once you've closed the program and reopened it. It's like all of the effects that you applied to the audio are baked in and you can't change them. And so it's really frustrating. So what I do recommend is the one pictured here, and that is Traction Waveform Free. It is it does it's a very robust digital audio workstation, has lots of great features. It is fully functional. I know there's a lot of free versions that are like limited, but this is fully functional. Um, and it does have paid versions that give you access to more plugins, but even the free version, you can make an entire song using just that. And then, yeah, I see Voodoo G in here's commenting on Waveform Free. It's a very good application. Special shout out to field recorders. This is something that works well if you want to record something without using a computer, or a phone for that matter. This little one here, the H1N, is small enough to fit in your pocket. Indeed, it's smaller than a standard smartphone, and definitely lighter. You could They're not exactly great for music, but you can record them for a lot of different purposes. Like you can record a room with it, you can do a podcast, you can interview someone, and they're not that expensive. They can be. Like there are bigger ones that can go up to like $400 or $500, but the small ones are still very good audio quality despite being relatively cheap. Stuff like that. And then this is kind of the setup that I have, because I've been doing this for a while and I want to do more than just the basics. And this is kind of the setup that you want to work towards if you want to do something like vocals for music, or if you want to record non-vocals for music. Note the bigger number. Your home studio could theoretically be, you could spend as much money as you want on a home studio. You could theoretically buy microphones that are tens of thousands of dollars and mix on $100,000 mixing console with thousands, with like audio interfaces and stuff like that each cost thousands of dollars a piece. You could really, like, there are a reason why professional studios cost multiple millions of dollars. You don't need to do that though. You can get very good quality with a significantly more modest setup. So let's talk about microphones. So XLR microphones are what we're going to be talking about here, because while USB microphones can plug into a desktop or a laptop computer, XLR microphones can plug into everything else, including like audio interfaces, field recorders, cameras, mixing consoles, guitar pedals, the works. All of them can support XLR. It's kind of the universal standard for audio in the professional world. So here are a collection of microphones that you could consider. The Behringer B1 is my go-to workhorse microphone. It is currently in its box behind me. And it sounds great. It's relatively affordable. The microphone that I am using right now is the Shure SM57. I think it sounds pretty good. I like it a lot. It's a very rugged microphone, and it's fairly compact. Another popular choice is the Audio-Technica AT2020. Like, everyone and their mother has one of those, so definitely a good quality mic. And if you want to sound like a professional recording studio, you could get a Shure SM7B. They are more expensive. Like I said, there are some mics that cost tens of thousands of dollars. Don't feel like you need to break the bank. My watch is vibrating. Now I bring up the cable here because most mics don't come with a cable. They require a special XLR cable. They look like that. They have the kind of like three-prong clippy thing on there. You generally need about 10 feet. They don't need to be super long. I think this is a 10-foot cable that I'm using. Then you want a mic stand. Mic stands are great because they allow you to put your mic places without needing to hold it or without needing to, keep it on your desk. It's very versatile. It's very flexible. And I actually have a second microphone stand over to my right. It might be off camera. That can reach up to 10 feet high if I need it to. So very, very flexible if you get a good one. But they also don't have to be super expensive. A pop filter. This is super important for sounding professional because if you don't have a pop filter, then the plosives coming from your microphone go into the mic and sound all poppy and terrible. But if you have a pop filter there, I have a windscreen on this thing. It'll help reduce those plosives. Much, much easier to work with. Stuff like that. They're not that expensive. You just clip them right onto your mic stand. Super easy. And I do specifically recommend a pop filter rather than a windscreen. I got this because I travel with it. But a pop filter is good because it also gives you an idea of mic placement. I'll talk more about that later. Headphones. Good to have headphones. You specifically want closed back ear covering headphones so that you don't get the sound from the headphones going into the microphone because that sounds bad. And again, you can spend lots of money on headphones, but don't feel like you need to. Computers are also good. Don't feel like you need to spend a ton of money here, but if you are in the market for a new one, get one with a beefy processor and lots of RAM and lots of USB ports. Beyond that, whatever you feel like. And then a digital audio workstation. This is the premium music making software. You can make a full song using Waveform free, but if you spend money on an application, it has a lot more tools available to you. It has like virtual instruments and synthesizers and like powerful effects plugins, like special pitch correction software, lots of other fun things like that. And you can spend the price of a digital audio workstation also runs the gamut. As you can see, I provide a couple different price points here. I personally use FL Studio. I have the Signature bundle because I wanted the extra fun software. Always nice. But it all comes down to personal preference. Use the one, try out various different demos for a DAW. That's the short form, a DAW. And just try out different demos and see which one kind of vibes with you the best and the one that you find easiest to use. Or just use one that a friend uses and they'll teach you how to use it. Good stuff. And an audio interface. Audio interfaces are great for being able to record specifically with zero latency You want to be able to record quickly enough. How would I phrase this? I'm a little bit hungry, so I'm a little brain fuzz right now. But so basically, the time it takes for the sound to come from your mouth into the microphone through your system and out to your speakers, that is latency. And you want that number to be as low as possible. It's never going to be absolutely zero, but it will be you can get it very, very close. And the way you do that is with an audio interface, is because it offloads the processing power of, the audio processing power off to a separate device that is much more powerful than the built-in sound card in your computer. Further, a lot of audio interfaces give you the ability to record multiple things at the same time. The one pictured here, the Scarlett 2i4 from Focusrite, can record 2 different things at the same time. There are interfaces that can record up to 18 different things at the same time. It depends on your needs, and they vary in price depending on what you want to record. So it's they're very, very useful to have. They are a lifesaver when it comes to recording vocals. Here's some bonus extra things. I'll go over quickly these. acoustic treatment, I have it currently behind me. I haven't had a chance to put it up yet because moving is hard. But yeah, acoustic treatment helps make your room sound better, and reference speakers are good because they give you the ability to listen to your audio more accurately. But I'm not going to get into this kind of stuff too much detail right now. These are bonus extras. If you have more questions about these, you can ask in the chat, or I can hit you up, or you can hit me up afterwards. That's fine too. My point ultimately is that you don't need to be Hans Zimmer here and spend millions of dollars on your studio in order to make something work. You can have a much more meager home studio. This is an older picture of my home studio. I haven't had a chance to take a newer one yet. But it's fairly simple, but it gets the job done. All right, so before I move on to the next part, I'm going to look to see if there are any questions. Okay. XLR is analog. Oh, Okay, so filling in some stuff. Okay. Waveform is for Macs and for Mac, Windows, and Linux. Yes. Okay. Recommend for recording a group like D&D. Okay, so I'm assuming you're going to have one microphone for the entire group. It actually depends on how you want to do this, because like if you're talking like Critical Role, everybody has their own microphone. So so like all the players and the dungeon master have their own microphone above them. And so those are all being, I'm assuming, routed to a mixing console, and then they have an audio engineer in the back. So that's like really super high production quality. If you are just having one mic for everybody, plop it right in the center of the room and make sure that it is a microphone that has an omnidirectional option. You want to have it set to omnidirectional rather than cardioid, so that by being omnidirectional, it'll pick up everybody in the room. And a popular choice for that is the Blue Yeti. The Blue Yeti has an Omni mode, and it's USB. You just plop your laptop down, put the mic in the center of the room, and it'll do that. The other option would be a field recorder. Like you could just put one of those in the middle of the room, like I mentioned the Zoom H1N, or the Zoom H2 is also a popular choice, because that one I think also can be omnidirectional. You just put that in the middle of your table, and that should be able to pick up everything. It may not be the best audio quality because everyone's going to be pretty far away from the mic, but it will pick everybody up. Okay, cool. Group is different than the individual is directional. Yeah, one that can pick up area audio. Like that's what Mariali. I said name wrong. Don't buy a computer at the moment. Yeah, okay. A couple months and yeah, that's a good point. Don't build a computer right now because crypto mining is ridiculous. Thanks I appreciate the compliments. Oh, well, what's it? The Blue Yeti. The Blue Yeti is, it has a variable pickup pattern. You can actually change it to be omnidirectional or cardioid or whatever. I think it actually has bidirectional too. And that's why I usually don't recommend it for people, because it's like more microphone than most people need. But if you're trying to record a group, it's a very affordable option. Okay, so we are caught up on the chat. Let's move on to getting the most out of your equipment. I'm going to try and go fairly quick through this because I want to get done by 4:50 so people have time to get ready for the next event and do whatever they need to do. Okay, onward and upward. So you got your equipment. Let's figure out how to use it. So we'll start with the recording space that you're in. If you have a choice in the room that you record in, choose the one that sounds the best. And that's based off of things like excessive reverberations, or like if there's like background noise or stuff like that. Do what you can to pick ones that are like kind of the best that you can get. A lot of people don't have a ton of choice in this regard, So you're better off you only really can just make the most of the one room that you have. You'll want to reduce the noise that you have to deal with. Indeed, I apologize. My computer is whirring right now because I have folding at home turned on. Let me turn that off so that we can make it a little bit quieter. But you want to reduce the noise as much as possible because it's gonna get into the recording, and it's much harder to remove noise than it is to prevent it. So yeah, get rid of like computer fans, heating stuff. I have my door closed because my heater is noisy. And then you also want to like remove any sort of like clanky jewelry, silence your phone, obviously. And then do what you can to spruce things up, like have carpet on the floor, put up curtains, have large, dense furniture like a bed or a sofa. Those are great for absorbing sound. Do bookcases are good for noise reduction? Absolutely. This is very true. Bookcases are great. A popular choice is a walk-in closet full of like bed linens and towels. Very, very good for quiet acoustics. Let's see. Another option is like if you have if you need to sort of create a very isolated sound, you could take a chair and place it upside down on a table and drape like a quilt or a sleeping bag or a big puffy coat over it, and then put your microphone inside. Boom, you got a DIY vocal booth. Very easy to work with. See what else we got. I think the next slide is... Okay, so yeah, the next slide is mic placement. Any other things about... Let's see if there's any other things about microphones. Let's see, about room stuff. No, I think I covered the stuff about room stuff. If people have any questions, let me know. All right, and now moving on to microphone placement. Okay, so you begin by placing the microphone at eye level. So sort of, yeah, you have it eye level pointing at you, directly in front of, with yourself pointing directly at the microphone. And then you want to kind of be right in the center of the room if you can be. That will help ensure even reverberation. And then once you have that placed, you then take the microphone and point it down towards your mouth. The idea here is that the air from your face holes, like your mouth and your nose, goes out and down. So by having your microphone above it, you're less likely to get, it's less likely to be in the path of the air. But you'll still be able to pick up the sound, so that works well. So we have that, and then... So as far as actual pop filters go, you don't want it to be directly up against the mic capsule. You want it to be up against the mic grill, and then you want it to have a bit of a gap there. So I usually use my fist as a bit of a gauge. You don't have, like, just whatever you feel would be a rough approximation there. It doesn't need to be super precise, but my fist is a good gauge. And then, so that's kind of what it looks like when it's in the right spot. Yes, face hole. Okay, and then what else? Okay, so now we're talking about mic distance. Like how far you are from your microphone makes a big difference. Depending on how close you are to the mic, like if you're very close to the mic, that helps eliminate the issue of room sound. So if you have a very, a bad sounding room, being closer to the mic is a good thing. I just hit the mic, I apologize. But the closer you are to the mic, the more likely you are to hear mouth noises, which is not great. And you also need to be a little bit quieter than you would be if you were farther away. By contrast, if you're farther away from your microphone, you have to be much, much louder in order for it to hear you properly. But this allows you to get the sound of the room into your performance, which is good if you have a room that sounds nice. So balance. The ultimate goal is to just sort of find a distance that makes sense. And then there's a little thing called the proximity effect, which is what happens when you get really, really close to a cardioid microphone. Let me demonstrate. In a world where people are using microphones correctly. As you can hear, my voice was a lot more bassy there because I was just like eating the microphone. That could be a good thing if you want that. If you want that kind of a thing, that could be very useful. But that's not always desirable. So if you want to avoid that, you want to be a bit farther away from the mic. So the general rule of thumb is to be between 8 to 12 inches away from your mic. That's usually enough to sort of be the happy medium between all of these things. And the way that I usually measure 8 to 12 inches is with my hand, based off of the placement of the pop filter, with my hand sort of like straight up and down like that. That is about 8 inches, and then if I splay my fingers, that's about a foot. Again, ballpark estimates. It doesn't have to be perfect, but this is a good way to get a well-balanced sound. If you want to imitate Rammstein, yes. I wish there was a panel on optimizing live performance at cons. Yeah, that's valid. That would be a good panel. I don't know if I'd be able to talk about that, but like I'm sure like some of the folks who work at First Squared might be able to talk to that, like Mackie probably. All right, so just general summary of mic placement. Stand in the center of the room, in front of your mic. Keep the microphone above you, point it down towards you. And you place the pop filter roughly between. You find a good distance based off of what you want to do, roughly 8 to 12 inches. The main thing to keep in mind is that you just take 15 minutes to test different mic placements each time you record, because you will learn a lot. Like the difference between here and here and here makes a huge difference in tone. Or like whether you're pointing at the microphone or whether you're not pointing at the microphone. It can make a huge change to how it sounds. So don't be afraid to experiment. You might find something that sounds really cool. All right. Okay, other things to keep in mind about recording. Beverage time. Always keep your vocalist well hydrated. I'm gonna. Excuse me. Yes, always keep your vocalist well hydrated. Make sure your vocalist can hear themselves while they're performing. So, like, give them a set of headphones. Because if you can't hear what you're doing, you're gonna have a hard time giving a good performance. And just like being like, because if you're wearing headphones, it's just gonna be all muffly. It's like in your head, and that's not gonna help you out. So you want to be able to hear yourself. And I know a lot of people hate the sound of their own voice. But there are two things that I recommend in that regard to help deal with that. One, do what you can to pretty up your voice. So apply things like compression and EQ and reverb. I'll talk a bit about those in a bit. They really help make you sound a lot nicer than you would normally. Like just the dry sound. It sounds a lot more clean and a lot more polished. The other thing is just practice, honestly. I have gotten used to the way that I sound in a microphone because I've heard myself speaking hundreds of times, because I've made videos, I've made music, I've done podcasts. All of these things give you practice listening to the sound of your own voice. Once it's like kind of, you get used to it. It's just kind of an exposure thing. Another thing, keep your cables out of the way. Just kind of tuck it off to the side around your microphone stand so that you don't snag it or trip over it or anything like that. That's not fun. Also, sometimes you make a mistake. Sometimes you're recording a performance and you say the wrong line, or you bump the microphone, or you cough or whatever. It happens. We're normal, we're people. We make mistakes. It's whatever. So the way that you handle those depends on what you're doing. If you're just kind of like, oh, I'm recording a dramatic reading or a podcast or a video essay or whatever, basically anything but music. If you're recording pretty much anything but music, you just kind of record, you go along, and then oops, if you make a mistake, you back up slightly and then read the line and then kind of read over where you left off and then continue and then just keep going until you make another mistake. Back up, continue, rinse and repeat till you get through all of your dialogue, and then you just edit out the mistakes in post. Super easy. And then for the 10 minutes left. Okay. And then if you're recording for music, instead what you want to do is you want to start at the beginning of the song and then record a full take, just beginning to end, the entire vocal part, warts and all. Just do your best, give it your all, really just get into the moment, get into the headspace of performing, and just do a full take end to end. And then do 2 more full takes. You want to do 3 in total. Just what you do then is, once you have 3 full takes, ideally, you will have made mistakes in different places, and then you will edit those 3 takes together into one master recording, and it will sound absolutely beautiful. So, absolutely, that's my definite recommendation for music stuff. And then, oh, quiet voodoo. And then clipping. Clipping is what happens if your microphone is too loud and it causes that weird buzzing distortion noise. I don't want to demonstrate it because I don't want to blow your ears out. But long story short, clipping is bad and you can't get rid of it once it happens. So the only thing that you can do is prevent it. And the way to prevent it is by what they call gain staging, which is where basically you turn down the microphone. You turn down the microphone going in, and then you basically try to record at a relatively quiet level, and then afterwards you turn up the recording so that it is the appropriate level. So it's like quiet going in, loud going out, rather than loud going in and clipping going out. Yes, and that's fairly easy to do on something like an audio interface because most audio interfaces have a input volume knob, and then you just turn that down and then turn up the output volume so that you can hear everything correctly. That way you can definitely prevent a lot of issues. Okay, so before I get into mixing, I saw there were some other comments going on. Rammstein. To do hydration while performing in fursuit, panel for that. Yes, hydration is especially important if you're doing anything in fursuit. I speak from experience. And yes, you really do get used to the sound of your own voice. Okay, so, and if we're getting close to the end here, so I'll wrap this up soon. This last part's not very long. And then feel free to drop any other questions in the chat. And then we'll kind of go from there. All right, so mixing. Mixing is like what you do after you have recorded your audio. So it's like kind of taking it that last little step to polish it up. So the first step of mixing is not really mixing, it is audio editing. Basically what you want to do here is kind of edit your recording. It's just like you're editing video, where it's like you have your video clip and you just like pull out pieces that you don't like and then get rid of them and then push it together. Same thing with audio. You just cut out the bits that you don't want, like mistakes, weird noises, other things like that. You get rid of all the bits that you don't want, and then compile them together. If you're doing that for music, you obviously don't necessarily want to squish it together, but for most other things like video and podcasts and dramatic readings and stuff like that, you want to avoid dead air. You want to avoid long periods of silence. Avoid silence that is longer than like maybe 2 or 3 seconds. if you can. Because, like, if you're doing a podcast and there's like 5 seconds of silence, you may think, oh, did it stop? Did my phone break? Did something happen? It's like, oh no, they were just sitting there in silence for 10 seconds. No, get rid of that. It's a distraction. The ultimate goal here is getting rid of distractions. And then if there is something in there that just like none of your takes or anything like that sound good, re-record it. It is much, much better to re-record something that sounds bad than it is to try and fight to make a bad recording sound good. I know it's not always feasible to re-record, but if you can, you should. All right, and so this is an example of what a edited audio file would look like. As you can see, this is the waveform display of the audio, and there's various cut points where I removed silence and gross bits and kind of mushed them together. Level balancing. This is basically just making sure everything is the right volume. If you have one vocal, it's just make sure it's reasonably loud. It doesn't need to be deafening, but it also needs to not be an absolute whisper. If you have more than one audio source, you need to balance them together. If you have like your vocal and a backing track, you need to make sure that they play well together, because if one is like, if the vocal's too quiet, it's going to be like people are going to be straining to hear it. If it's too loud, it's going to sound out of place and weird. If you have multiple people on a podcast, make sure that they are all relatively the same level. If your podcast has intro music, please make sure it is the same volume as the spoken audio. There is so annoying whenever the podcast intro is loud, but everyone else is really quiet. It's so frustrating. But yeah, level balancing makes a bigger difference than you realize, so really take your time to do it right. Here is an example from FL Studio of various audio tracks in just like, they have like little mixer faders that you use to set the volume level of different things, just to show like this is what it could look like. And now here are two mixing effects that I will introduce you to that are probably the most important ones for you to know about. The first one is the equalizer. The equalizer, is also called an EQ for short, is basically, it's like your car stereo on steroids. Instead of just having like a boost the lows or boost the highs or the mid-range, some of them have like 5 bands or 7 bands or 10 bands, and you can move them around. And basically what you do is you use that to sculpt the audio to make it sound more pleasing. Now, this may sound really weird and complicated, but for vocals, it's actually quite simple. Because for vocals, you only really need to do 2 things. Most vocals, if they're recorded well, don't need a lot of processing. The only things that might be worth looking into would be a small dip, like pulling down frequencies at around the 400 hertz range. You can do that. That's helpful. You don't have to, but it does clean things up a little bit. But the bigger thing is this left cliff on the side here. That is what's known as a high-pass filter. And what that does is that gets rid of all of the super low frequencies that are below the range of your spoken voice. So things like a stray plosive, bumping your mic stand, truck traffic going on outside. This can eliminate all of that noise, and it will help clean things up. You generally want to set your high-pass filter at around 100 hertz, give or take. So that is very, very useful. And then the other tool is the compressor. A compressor is basically an automated volume control. I'm not necessarily going to explain how they work, because they're a bit more complicated than an EQ is. But basically, you use them to turn down the loud parts of your... Basically, if set correctly, a compressor makes the loud parts of your audio quiet and the quiet parts loud, so that everything is kind of a more even volume level. So you don't have sudden spikes in volume and then other parts where it's really, really quiet. So a compressor allows you to fix that. Um, I have a video on my YouTube channel, this YouTube channel, explaining how to use a compressor in detail. Indeed, if you want the advanced mode version of this presentation, I actually have a 17-part tutorial series explaining how to get a great vocal sound from performance to recording to mixing on this YouTube channel. So feel free to come check it out or subscribe or whatever, or shameless plug, and I'm going to stop with that. Anyway, so mixing. Other mixing best practices. We're getting close to the end here. Don't mix too loud. It's bad for your ears, and it makes it hard for you to mix accurately. Take breaks whenever you can, because again, your ears need to take breaks. It makes it hard to mix accurately because of something called ear fatigue. You definitely want to take like a 15-minute break whenever you're mixing. Compare your audio material to something that you consider to be well produced so that you can get a good baseline for what to aim for. And then this was a lot of material, but if you remember nothing else from this presentation, remember one thing: if it sounds good, do it. If it sounds good to you, you're doing the right thing. Anyway, that is all that I have for today. Are there any questions in the waning minutes of this presentation? All right. Looks pretty quiet. Going once, going twice. If y'all have any more questions after this, feel free to hit me up. Here are my socials. You can comment on my YouTube channel somewhere if you have questions. I'm in the Discord right now for First Squared, so if you want to chat, feel free to hit me up. Or just hit me up on Telegram. Yeah, this is all I got. Thank you all for being here. I hope you enjoy the rest of your First Squared. There's lots of awesome panels coming up. I know another one that I'm going to in about 10 minutes is Scribbles and Bits. That's going to be a lot of fun. I've been to it several times. It's a good time. And donate to Haws. They are an amazing charity, and they could really use your help, especially considering the pandemic. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice day. All right, I'll just wrap this up here. Cool, sweet, and I will hop off. Have a nice